Hi, this is Sean Perrin, and you're listening to episode 51 of the Clarinet Podcast, the show where I discuss all that's new and neat with clarinet with the neatest people in the industry. Today's episode needs a little bit of explaining before we can get started. This is the first ever debate episode, and it will be co-hosted by a good friend of mine named Andrew Morrow. Now, early on in the year, I started posting a weekly debate topic on Wednesdays at the Clarinet community on Facebook. If you're not familiar with this, I'd invite you to join at www.clarinet.com/group. I was really surprised by the amount of feedback that these posts were getting, and I thought they were raising some really insightful concerns and questions and just amazing conversation that was not really being had anywhere else in such a productive way anyways. Anyhow, Andrew and I were arguing and discussing these topics one morning before a workshop that we were doing at a school, and suddenly it hit me that this would be a great way to bring these types of conversations to the podcast. Andrew and I have been sort of bantering and arguing and discussing things back and forth all through undergrad and when he was doing his master's, and it's just something that seems so natural to bring to the clarinet audience. So I hope you enjoy this episode, which is co-hosted, as I mentioned, by Andrew Morrow, who will provide some more information about himself in just a moment in the episode. And as I mentioned, please do feel welcome to come join the Clarinet community on Facebook at www.clarinet.com/group. Today's episode was brought to you by our sponsor, D'Addario Woodwinds. Thank you so much for listening. Sanding, shaping, balancing. For centuries, mastering your instrument meant mastering these crafts too. But now, D'Addario is refining craftsmanship for the 21st century by refining their reeds and mouthpieces with the world's most innovative techniques, so you can spend less time sanding, shaping, and balancing, and more time perfecting your own craft. To learn more about the new era of craftsmanship from D'Addario Woodwinds, visit d'addario.com/woodwinds. So I'm here today with Andrew Morrow, who is a clarinetist and bass clarinetist in Calgary, Alberta, and he's going to be joining me once a month on the Clarinet podcast here to discuss all the items that were mentioned in the debate Wednesday. Thanks for joining me, Andrew.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sean.
So the four topics we'd like to discuss today are: which direction should one pull the swab and whether this actually matters? Does keep plating make a difference to the clarinet as far as sound, feel, or anything else? Do you humidify your clarinet? And if so, how? And if not, why not? And what do you think about individually wrapped reeds? Before we dive into all that, though, Andrew, would you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I'm a freelance clarinetist here in Calgary, and I do a little bit of whatever comes my way. So playing in pickup orchestras, like the occasional concert band thing, lots of teaching, and occasionally I make excursions into the pop music world and play with country or rock bands and do the occasional recording session. And my biggest project I have going on right now is a contemporary music ensemble called Time Point.
You're also a founding member of an orchestra that's playing in smaller cities around Calgary now, aren't you?
Oh, yes, the Rocky Mountain Symphony Orchestra. Yeah, it's a really brilliant idea. We go out to all these little satellite towns around Calgary and do with a bunch of pros out of Calgary and play a shorter, usually concert of usually your most popular orchestral works. And but the really cool thing about that is, like, if you live in Turner Valley, you're about a 30-minute drive from the edge of the city. So you're looking at about maybe 90 minutes to get downtown if you want to go see the Calgary Philharmonic. Mm-hmm. And, that show starts at 8. It's maybe done at the earliest 10:30. You're getting in your car, if not closer to 11. And then, it's now, by the time you get out of downtown, that's half an hour and then another hour drive home. You're rolling into your driveway in Turner Valley at midnight, 12:30.
So you guys you're kind of trying to take the music to them, then make it easier.
Yeah, and so far it's been a runaway success. I think every concert we've had out of town has sold out, or we've had to add more seats and chairs and tickets. So it's people out in these little towns have been extremely receptive to the orchestra.
Awesome. And so we've been, actively going back and forth about the debate topics that have been posted every week in the the community there. And I think you actually even submitted a couple of the questions, which was really great. Before we get started, I do want to just say that we're both going to try and sort of play devil's advocate for all the opinions possible, and any of the opinions expressed don't necessarily represent even our own opinions, as strange as that may sound. Yeah, I'm just taking a lot of the comments that were sort of brought up and trying to sort of flesh those out and bring a little bit of light to the conversation. So let's talk about the first topic there, which was which direction one should pull the swab and whether or not this actually matters. The way I was first taught to play clarinet was just to pull it through the top and pull it out towards the end of the clarinet. And I originally didn't think that it mattered, but over the years, people told me to turn it the other way. How were you taught, Andrew?
I don't really think I was, but I remember I would always, when I was younger, pull the swab through the bell end, because it just from the starting drop it through the bell and pull it out the barrel, because it just makes sense because it's shaped like a funnel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I heard that maybe 10 years ago, I heard that the principal clarinetist for the OSM keeps his clarinet either perfectly vertical or at the angle that he's playing at, and he never flips it around and spins it over and does all for his swab, simply so that he doesn't get spit in the keys.
Well, and I think that's fairly logical to me, and that was what was brought up by several people, actually, was trying to ensure that the moisture doesn't move in the instrument. So when you spin it around upside down to put the swab into the barrel, into the bell, then wouldn't all the moisture move and shift around?
Yeah, and that was just I just read somewhere that's how you get spit in your tone holes, or it's a way to really increase the chances of getting spit in your tone holes.
So that makes sense to me, but what also makes sense to me was another argument that was brought up, and that was that you don't want to pull the moisture into new areas of the clarinet. So by pulling through the bell, as the swab comes through the instrument, it takes it kind of out the way it came.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what's strange, is both of these make sense to me. And so I start to wonder from an actual day-to-day use perspective, though, does this really make a difference?
Yeah,
what do you think?
The other thing I had heard is that, so on the inside of your register key, there's a big metal post going into your clarinet. And someone had told me once, and I kind of use this to scare really young clarinet players, is that if they break that, you might as well just throw your clarinet in the garbage, because a new clarinet costs less than replacing that. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That was just something I had heard at one point. But going through the top would also stop young clarinet players' swabs from getting stuck. Now, I believe in the debate, one of the commenters, a dean, said just get a silk swab, which solves that problem. Which she is right, but the number of clarinet care kits that come with that really thick cotton swab that just gets stuck all the time.
Yeah, I mean, this brings up another area of concern, which is that the type of swab, and I do agree that matters for sure. I mean, when you have those ones that are extremely thick, I don't know what that material even is. It's but it's like a quarter of an inch thick sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of like a piece of a ShamWow or something.
Yeah, it's crazy, and there's those ones too that are shaped kind of like a letter H. Is that the ones you're talking about? It's like a really.
Yeah. No, there's also those ones. I was thinking about just the big square. Well, I guess they're not even that big. They're actually quite small, but they're extremely thick. The fuzzy ones.
Yeah.
But then there's also the weird plastic spongy ones that are shaped like an H.
And a lot of those swabs come with, and this became another issue of contention on the conversation wall there, was the little metal piece that's not covered up by any cloth to weight the swab into the instrument. Those are terrible because, of course, they just scratch the inside the whole way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess back to if we assume we use a proper swab that's of a good material with a covered weighted end, some people were saying that what might happen is over time, kind of waves on the shoreline, making the sand, over time pulling the swab through the entire instrument might result in sort of taking away bits of wood, and that would be another argument for pulling through the bell, is so that the compression happens inside kind of a gradient funnel, like you were saying, instead of at the actual entrance to the bore at the barrel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I I had actually talked about this very topic with my teacher, or former teacher Stan, and that he's actually seen a couple barrels that have had the sides eroded away from years of use. And I remember when I got my bass clarinet, it was from a repair guy in Denmark. I think it was Loth and Pfeiffer, and the one guy there was saying, like, always stand your bass clarinet up, like when it's in its case. Don't let the case down. Stand it up, because over like 30 years, which, I mean, it's a really long time, but over 30 years, your bore stops being round and it becomes more ovalic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then it affects your tuning.
So this is an actual concern then, though. But my thought, though, is, okay, so the swab's going to take material away at the entrance to the bore at the barrel, but why wouldn't this happen along the full length of the tube? And maybe it does. Oh,
yeah, they could. I didn't even think about that.
So, yeah, someone did actually mention this, and I hadn't thought about it either, but there was one comment on here, and I can't remember who the repair person was, but they had actually advised or mentioned that to never swab the instrument, that the moisture will evaporate, and anytime you swab it, you take a little bit of material with it. So,
So I think the moral is just don't swab your clarinet.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where it goes. And I was really surprised by the sheer number of conversation points that were brought up about this. And I would really love it if someone who is a skilled repair person would chime in about this and write their thoughts either on the Clarinet community or by contacting me directly at feedback@clarinet.com. Do you have any other thoughts on that issue before we move on, Andrew?
No, I just want to say that, like, I'm personally really torn on this, and every time I've swabbed my clarinet, I've been like, oh man, should I start doing it the other way?
You know, it's funny you say that, because now I find I go to a clinic to teach beginner students, and I get a bit of anxiety about this issue, which is so weird. And even every time I swab my own clarinet, I'm like, well, should I swab it through? I've been swabbing it through the bell now, always, because I agree that there's probably issues with the entrance to the barrel there, but I also see the point about moving the water around that doesn't need to go, and I also am very curious about this whole concept of changing the bore size over time anyways. And you know what, one more thing is that if it causes damage at the entrance at the barrel, wouldn't it cause damage to the inside of the tone holes where they're undercut?
Yeah, actually it absolutely would.
So
maybe that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. One thing's for sure, though. I think that everyone agrees to avoid those type of pad saver things that go in and just basically rot inside the clarinet.
I've heard. I had a teacher who called them shove-its because of where you should shove it if you have one of those, which is right into the garbage, because those are terrible.
Right into the garbage.
Yeah.
So the next topic of discussion the following week was, does key plating make a difference? And I didn't really specify whether I was talking about the sound or the feel. No one actually chimed in saying that the sound would be different. I'm pretty glad about that, because I can't really imagine that it can be. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine for a metal instrument, where like the metal is the resonant body, like a trumpet or a saxophone, then the plating, I mean, it would make sense for it to make a difference, because that's the actual thing that's vibrating. Whereas with the clarinet, I think it's the wood that's the resonant body. And even though the metal might be contributing a bit to that, I don't think the plating would be have as much of an impact as the actual metal that the pieces are made out of.
Well, and of course, it's different than the plating of like the ligature, because that's having a direct contact with the reed, which is obviously associated with the response and the resonance of the instrument. I would love to see some sort of tests as far as like a sonogram or whatever to show the peaks in the overtone response or something like that, just to see, is the sound objectively changing with different kinds of things like this? And maybe that's something we should have here on Clarinet, is some sort of like scientific
I remember
episode, go into a lab or something.
At the U of C, there was this weird egg-shaped sonic like measurement device in the room that I took my lessons at. And my teacher, I was like, what is that thing? And he's like, oh, it's this weird thing. It measures all of the like resonant frequencies of whatever you put in there. So like, if you could put a reed in there and make it vibrate, you'd have like a complete computer readout of every characteristic of that reed vibrating. But
wow,
you can't. Anyway, I think they use it for other stuff. because you couldn't be able to get the reed to vibrate in there.
Yeah, I'd like to compare that and also sort of the materials clarinets are made out of. That might be another sort of topic of debate. With the plating, though, I do feel that the feel of the metals makes a big difference for me anyways. I really prefer silver. The feel of silver to nickel. I've never actually owned a gold clarinet, so I wouldn't have any direct experience with that. But which plating do you prefer?
I also prefer silver. I think the feel of it, yes, and also the look of it, which I realize is kind of shallow. But, a silver instrument looks more professional than you want your instrument to look good as well as sound good when you're on stage. I mean, maybe you don't, right? But
yeah, so many people always say, "Oh, it's not about the look, it's about the sound." But why can't it be both? I mean, you're going to worry about how your shoes are polished before the gig, or whether or not you have a nice tie on. I mean, maybe you should worry about how your instrument looks too, to some extent. Like, I know it's not the most important thing, but
at least clean the water spots off of it.
Yeah, give it a nice, get a polishing cloth and clean it up once a week, something like that. But, the silver, one other benefit is, although it does tarnish, it's much easier to return silver to its original sort of glory than it is nickel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
what about gold?
I don't know about gold. I think that gold is similar to silver, but gold actually doesn't tarnish. That's an interesting thought. But I wonder how the gold feels after playing any length of time with it. Like I said, I've briefly experimented with it at clarinet festivals and stuff, but I've never actually owned a golden instrument. So I wonder, if the maintenance is a bit less on it.
Perhaps. Everyone that I've met who's had a gold instrument, which I've come to think of it, has all been oboe players. They always say that they have an allergy to the silver, and so it reacts poorly with their fingers, and gives them a rash, and the gold doesn't. But we had one commenter, Anthony Rodriguez, who said he prefers silver because he's actually allergic to nickel, which is pretty interesting.
I actually had I got contacted today. Someone's running a Kickstarter campaign for a young student who either needs to quit band because he's allergic to the nickel, or needs to be able to purchase a silver instrument, but the family can't afford it or something. And I thought that was so interesting because I'd actually never considered the allergy aspect of it.
Yeah, that's the only experience I've had with gold clarinets, other than, you see the occasional gold-plated clarinet in the store and you think, oh, that's just ridiculous.
Well, one other element that might be worth considering is obviously the price. I mean, the price goes up considerably for gold, but what about the weight? Like, I wonder if the densities of these platings actually affect the resulting weight in any meaningful way.
Oh, yeah, because, I wonder. And that would probably change from brand to brand because, it would be easy enough to look up which weighs more, gold or silver, for density.
But the amount of plating, for example, or the number of keys or...
Yeah, maybe if you plate it in gold, you actually need less of the actual gold to go into the plating.
Well, some people brought up other platings. There's also like rose gold. There's unplated, apparently. Some instruments. I think it's very rare. But, regarding the weight thing, there used to be entirely metal clarinets, right?
Yeah.
So...
Don't you have an entirely metal clarinet?
No, I don't, actually.
Oh.
I wish I did.
Yeah, I look for them on eBay every now and then to see if the price is right.
Yeah, I would love to have one, even just to for fun.
Yeah, I'd probably spend $100 on one easily.
So Lucas here in the comments says silver is slightly heavier, so that would solve that sort of question. And that does make sense, obviously. I mean, the more dense the material, the heavier it is. And, one thing I've always found funny is that people who sort of do complain about the weight, often the thing that gets complained about the most is that left hand E-flat lever. I'd love to have a debate Wednesday about that, actually.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good one.
It adds a little bit of extra weight. And, by the time you've gone maybe to silver, heavily plated silver keys and a really quality wood body, maybe we are talking I know that we are talking, those extra ounces add up. And where do they go? They go straight to your thumb.
Yeah, and if you have a green line as well, one of the buffet fancy plastic clarinets, I shouldn't say fancy plastic because I'm sure there's a super lockdown trade secret as to the secret behind those, but those weigh significantly more than a wooden clarinet.
Yeah, but those who play them love them. I mean, you own a buffet green line, don't you?
Yeah, I do, and which this is going to come up in a later debate topic today, but I quite like it here in Alberta.
Yes.
I've been in some situations like, I did one gig with a country singer who like came into town like an hour before the gig, and he told me what songs we were doing, but how some of these like pop guys are just like, yeah, here are the chords, let's just go on stage and do it, right? But
yeah,
it's a little hard for us classically trained guys, so I was like, yeah, can we at least like run it first? And so we ended up running like the 3 songs in the alley behind the Ship and Anchor, like under a little overhang while it was pouring rain, and I was like, man, I'm really glad I have my green line clarinet today.
Yeah, the anxiety that would even cause.
Yeah, like, oh man, I couldn't imagine like I've done gigs where it's outside and it's like, it was one playing in C with time point, and I was like, well, I'll bring my bass clarinet, but if the weather's cold, I'm playing my little clarinet. And the weather was cold, and was like, well, I'm really glad that I brought my green line.
I'm just rifling through the comments here on the Facebook page, and I came across an odd one I wish I'd asked about earlier. Are you looking at the same page I am right now, trying to?
I believe so.
Peruse through these. Anders down at the bottom says, I would love to have my Ridenour clarinets replated with gold because silver can't be used with hard rubber. What? I wonder why not.
Oh, that's weird.
That is really interesting.
What part of his clarinet would be hard rubber?
The Ridenour clarinets are made out of hard rubber.
Oh, like the body of the clarinet?
Yeah, I believe so. The whole thing.
Oh, okay.
So he also says something which we haven't brought up, which is the skin kind of, not skin, the oils on the skin break down the nickel plating pretty quickly. And you know what? You're just talking about they're outside in the rain. This kind of made me think of that too, is that is just going to be a nightmare from a cleaning perspective. But that also is going to ruin your pads no matter which kind of clarinet you have, no?
Yeah, the marching band that I teach, the clarinets there, I believe they all have nickel keys. And their clarinets go through hell and back every summer.
Yeah. But, another comment here says that Peter says he wore through the silver on his instruments. I've never seen that personally, but I imagine it can happen.
I think it depends on how oily your skin is, because I've never really polished my silver all that diligently on my clarinets. And the only thing that's tarnished for me is my mouthpiece cap. And everything else is fine. And I'm really bad about polishing them. And
my clarinet's almost 15 years old now, and it doesn't look brand new, but if I give it a polish, it comes back. It's not actually wearing through anywhere, so.
Yeah, so I think it might be because of the oil in your skin, or maybe it's because we live in like a colder climate, so we're not as sweaty when we're playing. Yeah,
well, I think, Michael Lowenstern actually mentioned that he got his brand new, his new Selmer instrument that has the
stealth bass clarinet?
The stealth, it's all black. He said he actually went with a matte finish that is kind of, it's not really, it's not smooth. It's not quite textured, but it's like a matte finish, sort of like you'd find on, I'm trying to think of an example here, but it has like a texture to it.
Huh.
And I thought that was very interesting, actually, because I would like that, because that's what I like about silver is kind of how I feel my fingers sticking to it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one thing that was brought up here. I can't find it at the moment, but they talked about the strength of the keys. Now, I don't know if the plating has that big of an effect on how easily the keys bend.
Yeah, wouldn't that be more of the alloy inside?
Yeah, because I know with my buffet clarinets, if I want to bend a key, I gotta put it against my desk and put my whole body weight into it just to get it to move half a millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some student clarinets where you're like, all right, let me look at your clarinet, and you're like, whoa, you smashed into the door with this, didn't you? And you're like, all right, well, let me just bend this key, bend the F key back 30 degrees and stuff like
bend
that.
All over the place, yeah.
Yeah, and you just bend them with your hand, and it's it shouldn't be that easy to bend, but I wonder if the plating would have an effect on that.
There are way more comments here than I realized about the allergy.
Yeah, it seems to be the most common thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never would have thought it was that big of a consideration. I wonder why few companies then, well, maybe because of price, but you'd think there'd be some student clarinet offerings with different platings on them, or a rubberized outer coating or something.
Yeah.
To prevent.
Oh. I wonder how common it is.
Well, I'd say a third of the a third of the questions on here, maybe a quarter, comments, people are bringing that up. So,
Yeah,
very
but
interesting.
I'm just trying to do a little quick Google search to get a bit more information about the allergy, and it comes up as a jewelry allergy. And so, just like the first thing this article is talking about is the use of nickel, silver, and gold in jewelry. So it's less expensive jewelry. Nickel is the base metal, and then it's plated with gold or silver. And many people believe they're allergic to gold or silver, but they're actually allergic to the nickel that it's made out of.
So the cheaper jewelry is made with kind of a bit of nickel mixed in.
Yeah, like the base metal is nickel, and then they just coat it with either silver or gold. And according to this article, it's people get a rash, but it's from the nickel, not from the gold or the silver.
So wait, I wonder if the barrier of plating is enough then for people with the allergy.
Yeah, so maybe it's that they had a clarinet that didn't have enough silver on it, or let's see what it says here.
Well, allergies can be pretty severe. I mean, there's people who can't even have an iota of peanut butter. I mean, it's not like just disguising with jam is going to make that go away.
Yeah.
So I wonder about the plating this. If someone could, again, chime in about this. If you have sort of a thought or some experience with this, please share. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah. So, when it comes to the gold, it'd be interesting how many carats are used in the gold plating. It's like I found a little chart here. And so 24 karat is considered pure gold, which is 99.9% gold. Then 18 karat is 75, 12 karat is 50, and 9 karat is 37.5%. So it'd be interesting.
What's the other metal that's mixed in with it?
I don't know. Let's see.
Because that might be, also an issue, right? I don't know.
Yeah, gold can be alloyed with many different types of metals, which alter its hardness, color, and other properties. So it might be alloyed with silver, copper, or white gold is usually alloyed with nickel. Yeah, rhodium, which is similar to platinum, is used as well.
I wonder how the pink gold is, or the rose gold, sorry, is.
Oh, yeah.
So interesting topic. I would talk to a jeweler or something.
Yeah, because they would know. Like a really advanced jeweler would have probably know a lot about metal allergies.
Yeah, and how this affects the instruments. So I'm gonna I'm trying to think of someone who I could contact maybe for a full episode about like plating and this kind of thing. I think that'd be a really interesting topic. So
yeah, that would be good. Do you know Walter Grabner?
Yeah.
Yeah, he would not specifically about plating, but he might be a good guest to have on.
Yeah, I think John Weir out in Toronto does plating too, so he might know. That might be good. So let's move on to the third topic here, and this is especially relevant at this time of year. The third debate topic was, do you humidify your clarinet, and if so, how? I was really surprised by the number of answers, because based on how you hear companies talking about humidifying instruments, you'd think it was something everyone was really diligent about, but a lot of people sort of came out and kind of mentioned that they didn't bother, or didn't really worry about it too much, or just sort of threw some orange peels in and hoped for the best. But I don't know.
Yeah, I humidify my bass clarinet. It has this little, the buffet case has this little slot in it for this like weird stuff it style cleaning swab.
Yeah.
Which is kind of silly, and it kind of gets gross, and then the little pieces of fluff come off and they get caught in your pads, and you're like figuring out where's this leak coming from. And two like string bass humidifiers, those green ones with the yellow sponge inside that like every string player uses.
Yeah.
So two of those fit perfectly inside my bass clarinet case, and so I keep those in there with the humidifier. And I mean, when I first got my bass clarinet, I humidified it a lot, and I was constantly paying attention to it, and it did eventually crack a little bit. But the nice thing about where it cracked is it cracked off of the hole for the register key that's in the wood, which is the only pressure fitted hole or only pressure fitted key on the entire bass clarinet. So if it is going to crack, it's going to be right there. And then the other benefit with the bass clarinet is the wood is so thick and so dense that it's unbelievably rare for a crack to go all the way through. But so I don't I don't humidify it as much as I do oil it regularly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I went to a presentation this summer at Clarinet Fest. I think it was the company's called Lomax Cases, and he was insisting that if you can bring your clarinet back to proper humidity after a long time of not humidifying it, you'll actually get better response out of the instrument because it changes shape as it dries out, right? Or becomes over humidified. And his product, actually, I found really interesting. The over humidity is something I'd never considered very much in Calgary here. I mean, we have humidity levels like 15, 20% in the winter time.
Yeah.
Really, really low. But there's other parts of the world where it's so humid that the opposite problems occur, right? So you actually have to dehumidify your instrument.
That would have never occurred to me.
Yeah, so there's actually a product now, and I just got sent one by D'Addario to try, actually. They use them for guitars, and what they are is they're a little pack that if it needs to give off humidity, it does that, but it also has the ability to take humidity. So it controls the exact humidity level for your instrument, which I thought was pretty cool. Me, for example, I was not very good about this in my university days, to be honest. I was off and on with my humidifying efforts, and unfortunately that led to a crack. I mean, but I would also just sort of
definitely would.
Yeah, well, the temperatures here too, right?
Yeah. If you go from a warm room to a cold room and you start playing your clarinet, or if you get out of your car and it's minus 30 and get to rehearsal, throw your clarinet together.
Well, and I feel like the only thing worse than not humidifying or humidifying to the wrong humidity or something is doing it like kind of willy-nilly and every once in a while, because it's going through such harsh changes, up to 70%, but with too many orange peels and then drying out over 2 weeks. Like, you got to stay on top of it.
Yeah. One thing that I found in Alberta is because it's so dry here that the wood basically shrinks over time, which is why all of our clarinets are so sharp around here.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's another theory I have heard. And so I wonder if humidifying would stop your clarinet from shrinking. Because, I mean, even if it shrinks like 1
that
millimeter.
was Lomax's argument. Yeah, he said that, if your clarinet is either too humid or not humid enough, it's going to be changing shape. It's just how it works. It'd also be changing density, I believe. But he said if you use one of his products, which, his product is basically an air sealed case, which allows you to get longer life out of these revitalizer packs from, I believe he uses the ones from D'Addario. But it will actually really improve any instrument. And you can take an old instrument, he was saying anyways, you can take an old instrument that has been really neglected and sort of return it to health with this product. And I thought that was a really compelling thing. I feel like I want to try it with my clarinets.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm looking at his cases right now, and he sells a triple case, which is what I've kind of been looking for a while. One that holds my bass clarinet, my A, and my B flat. Just so I can go to a gig and carry one case. Would just be nice to do that, especially since my Buffet bass clarinet case is falling apart and my BAM clarinet case is falling apart. And his price is reasonable. I mean, it's certainly less than the Wiseman cases. So
he also has some models with a compelling feature now. I believe I'm talking about the right company. But it has a plug, and it warms the case to a certain temperature over a couple of hours. But I think that the real miss with that product, and what I'd love to see come from that product, is one you can plug into your car. So you take the case into the car and it keeps it at room temperature, even if the car is colder or warmer than, I don't think it air conditions the case actually, but it does heat it up. They even make a heated stand that goes over the clarinet so it'll stay at the right tuning. Yeah. It's really neat. So.
Oh man, I've heard of people putting, like those hand warmer packs where you crack them and then you put them in your gloves when it's like super cold.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's an interesting idea.
People putting those in their case, and it's like, I don't know if I'd want that, because what if it shifts to be right above the wood or something? Then you're really heating up this one part of the wood.
Well, those actually get surprisingly hot. I mean, there's times when I remember using them when I was skiing, and it's like, my hands are burning. So I don't think you'd want those to slip around in the case. And my scary thing about those would be, well, how do you control how much heat it's giving off? It's just like you said. I mean, I wouldn't leave my clarinet in a locked hot car. I mean, I don't know if I'd want some sort of pack in there, bringing the case up to God knows what temperature.
Yeah.
So I've never heard of that. That seems like an interesting. But then again, maybe it's better to have a little pack in there like that than it is to walk around with the case on your back and minus 40.
Yeah. But yeah, the only other thing that I would say about like humidity is every repair guy in the mountains, like where we live, like Peter Spriggs and the guy at St. John's Music and the guy at Long McQuaid, it's always the same story. It's they moved here from wherever and they never humidified for like 30 years. They never humidified their oboe or their bassoon or their clarinet, whatever. And then they go to Banff for a weekend and their instrument cracks and now they always humidify.
Yeah. 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 A lot of houses here, I don't know if this is typical, but have a humidifier built in. So I actually, in my new house, because we have a piano and also I have guitars and stuff, I like to keep it at a healthy humidity for that. But it's funny, my humidifier actually failed this last week. And I really noticed because my little, meter showed me, went down from about 40 some odd percent to about 20. I was like, what's going on here? But it turned out it failed. But I actually saw a really interesting product on TV called the Humidifier, it's a Canadian product. It's new. I actually saw it on Dragon's Den, which is kind of like Shark Tank for American listeners. But it's like a little thing you plug onto your vent. So even if you don't have a built-in humidifier in your house, you can keep a room of your house at a healthy humidity without any electricity. It just goes over the vent, and as the vent blows in the wintertime, it releases the water, even if just the fan is on without any heat.
Oh, that's really interesting because
it is.
I got, as you know, I have my first child on the way, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. And one of the things we have to get for the baby's room is a humidifier.
Oh, yeah. You should get one of these.
Yeah.
No power. It's also quiet. It's silent.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's no louder than the furnace. So, yeah, I've been in contact with them, and it's kind of hard to find. You have to order it online, and then it ships to Home Depot. I don't think you can actually go to the store and buy it. But they make another really cool thing. It's a smaller version that actually just goes on your desk, and it looks like a little bulb or something. But it apparently is able to bring up the humidity in a small room. So I think it's perfect for a teaching studio or something. And they're about $20, and they go on the desk and radiate humidity. I'm really excited to try it out. I'm going to order a couple here ASAP because now that I'm going to get the humidifier in the house fixed anyways. But that seems like a cool kind of thing just to have in a teaching space where you don't have any control over the humidity and your clarinet's out for 6 hours a day in it.
Yeah. And it would make the room more pleasant to sit in for the whole day.
Well, yeah, and people forget about the humidity. Just your basic breathing even is upset by really dry conditions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept. The whole humidity thing is so interesting, and it's obviously something that so many instrumentalists have to deal with, ranging from violinists to guitarists to us. And there's just some compelling solutions out there nowadays. But overall, there wasn't much of a debate here. It seemed like most people try to humidify, and
I don't think there was anyone who was like, you should not humidify your clarinet. Absolutely not.
But the methods were interesting, though. Some people said the orange peels. I mean, these humidity pack things. I chimed in about the house humidifier. And
I used to use orange peels in university, but I'm a big procrastinator. And so I'd always forget to take them out, and then they'd dry up, and then they'd kind of like crumble a little bit and make a mess in my case.
Well, I had mine inside of like a little pill bottle with some holes poked in it.
Oh, that's smart. I just put mine right in there.
Well, my problem with them was kind of the same thing. I'd put them in, and then I'd forget to check the humidity after I put them in. And if I'd put in too many, the humidity would get too high, and all of a sudden I started to have moldy reeds and a little bit of like that fresh orange smell is nice at first, but after a few days it turns into kind of a musky smell, and then it gets moldy. Like an orange peel is an organic thing, right? Yeah,
I actually experienced my first moldy reed the other day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this student, she was just, the sound on her saxophone just was not correct. It was just, everything about it was off. And I was like, oh, let's check out your reed. And I flipped it over and I was like, oh, is this your only reed? And she goes, yep. And I go, oh, well, shoot. Because we have, this was on Friday and she had a recital Saturday morning. And I was like, well, I'll be right back. And so I just went to grab the Lysol wipe and I just cleaned the crap out of the back of that reed and gave it back to her. And I was like, yeah, make sure you pick up some new reeds tomorrow and then throw this one out.
Right away. That's like a reed emergency.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really have the courage to tell her, this is a moldy reed.
Yeah, it can scare some kids, but it's almost worth scaring them. That's not something that's okay. That mold can be, mold can be harmful, right?
Yeah. But I was more thinking man, they don't because the lesson was that like after Long McQuaid was closed and the recital was before Long McQuaid was open.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, well, if I tell her it's a moldy reed, she's not going to be able to do the recital tomorrow. I'll just clean as much of this mold off as I can.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Like there was like a dime-sized pile.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it sounds like
disgusting.
Sounds like a real maintenance lesson was in order after that.
Oh yeah, it'll be that and Christmas carols next week.
So that brings me to the final sort of question that was debated on the forum, and this was brought up by Tony Park. And I don't really want to reference any brand specifically because a few are doing this now, but I guess it doesn't matter if we do. But the question was like, are individually wrapped reeds really making a difference as far as the response and finding more better reeds in the box or not?
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, you were unpacking a box of reeds back in university, and you were so angry because you couldn't get the stupid little packages open. And I was like, Sean, there's like a little slit on like the top. If you just tear it there, and you were just like,
I don't remember this.
Oh man, you were just like, oh my God, I've been doing this for years. How come I've never found this? It was so funny. So yeah, I don't know about the packaging. I've heard everything in the Van Doren pack can be recycled.
I've heard that too, and I've also heard that can't be. I mean, I hope it can be recycled. I've been putting it in the recycle bin for probably 20 years.
Me too. I mean, the plastic sleeves, I'm pretty sure, are recyclable, and the foil humidified wrapper should be. Then, of course, the cardboard is. And so the only thing I'd be curious about is the plastic on the outside of the case or the box.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that's still recyclable, no?
I think so. I know, like, if it has, like, a number, like, if the plastic has a number on it with, like, little recycling arrows around it, you can almost certainly recycle it, at least where we live. But I've heard with plastic, if you can stretch the plastic, then you can recycle it. If the plastic doesn't stretch, then you're supposed to throw it in the garbage.
Oh, man, I had no idea about any of that. But,
yeah.
You know, the environmental so-called consequence was brought up as far as like all the extra packaging and the larger box, which requires, fewer boxes per case to ship or whatever. But I wonder if any sort of biological consequence would be counteracted by the fact that if the reeds perform better, you're going to use fewer of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I imagine it's the shipping is probably the biggest impact.
Yeah.
Right. Like you saw that picture I posted of like the old style, the little plastic like gum pack that holds 5 reeds.
Mm-hmm.
So those would have been about, a quarter of the size, but if the reeds are better and they last, 4 times as long, then I guess the impact would be the same.
Well, and Amanda chimed in. And I really loved what she said. She tells her students when they open the packs, they get to, if they hold it close, to their face, they can breathe in a little bit of Paris or something like that. And I thought that was kind of cute there for the kids.
that is actually really adorable. But one thing I have found with those humidity packs is the reeds are just spectacular. Like right out, you take them out of that humidity pack, pop it on your clarinet, and it's the most beautiful reed ever. And, you play it for 10 minutes, you come back to it the next day, and it's the worst thing around.
But that's my, I guess, experience with them. Maybe it's because it's so incredibly dry here, but it seems like it takes the reeds longer to settle into the climate that they're introduced to in this way. So I've tried several things in the past, and one of them was just I get a box of reeds, I unwrap all of them and let them just sort of season or age or whatever without the wrappers on there because they're in this climate now, right?
Yeah. Now, do you soak your reeds in water?
No, I've never gotten into that. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah, all the time. I've been doing it for years.
Oh, really? I should try it. I've heard a few people talk about it now, but I've heard some people really go into the sort of almost the mythology of breaking in reeds, and there of course has to be some objectively right way to do it. But I think that unfortunately music is somewhat unscientific at times, and we haven't determined the objectively right way to do most things.
Yeah, I've even heard, like when you hold a reed up to the light to see where the thicker and thinner parts of the reed are, and hopefully you get that nice like oval shape of darkness.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I've seen people who swear by that. Every reed goes up to the light, and this one will be the best one. They slap it on there, sounds amazing.
Well, you know what's funny about that? The logic behind that is that basically the thickness of the reed will allow a certain amount of light through when held up. But there we go again, determining the hardness of the reed by a visual characteristic. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes any sense logically. Like, I understand that it leads to more often theoretically a better reed, but wouldn't it also make sense that different cane could be a different stiffness at a different thickness?
yeah, I've heard that reeds at the bottom, from the bottom of the plant, like closer to the base of the plant, are harder than reeds from the top of the plant, which would also make sense.
Yeah, and the thicker blanks are stiffer than the thinner blanks.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I've seen people who swear that holding it up to the light is the most ridiculous thing you could do.
Yeah, every time I've heard an argument about one way about this, I hear the exact same argument from somebody else. The opposite way.
Yeah, but
It always happens.
yeah, I don't know. I remember a long time ago, before they switched over the to everything being individually packaged, the 56 Rula Pick reeds, the black box of Van Doren's,
Yeah.
those used to come in a smaller box. Like when everything came in a smaller box,
yeah.
they came in a different shaped box, and it'd be like opening like a present, like where
It was
like
kind of like opening sardines. You
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
opening. Yeah.
yeah, and
I forgot about that.
you'd have like this tinfoil thing you'd peel back, and those, like, I remember those reeds were spectacular around then.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really. I remember when that shift happened. I think it was in the late '90s, early 2000s. I can't remember the exact year, but yeah, all I remember really was the boxes got bigger, and then I don't really store the reeds in the box. But one person was sort of saying that one disadvantage is that once you take that wrapper off, now the reeds are shaking around in the box. But I don't know why I don't continue to store reeds I'm actively using in the reed box.
I store old reeds in the reed box. Maybe come back to them a year later or something, or
Yeah,
extra time.
I can't imagine using the reed box as like a place to keep my reeds.
No, you should be keeping your reeds in a proper reed case, either like glass, like a glass reed case would be ideal, where the flat part of the reed is resting against the glass. But if you can't afford that, then the Rico reed cases are a pretty spectacular second.
The D'Addario ones, the new D'Addario ones.
Yeah. Sorry, well, it was Rico when I bought mine.
Yeah, they've rebranded it, but they're called I think they're called the Reed Vitalizer case or something.
Oh no, actually, I think that's maybe, because there's another thing that looks like. Do you remember when we were really young and we'd go to the beach and our mom would make us or they'd have like this weird like waterproof like thing where you like twist the lid on and it's just like it's like a little cylinder.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Those are made in Edmonton, actually.
Oh yeah. So
yeah.
I have a friend who has one of those and she loves it. And apparently some people will put there's like a sponge in there. And so you like fill the sponge, like you soak the sponge, and some people will use vodka because the alcohol will kill any bacteria. And some people will use hydrogen peroxide, and some people will just use water. And apparently it keeps the reeds quite humidified. But my concern with that would be the likelihood of molding.
Yeah, again, there's no way to control the humidity, and the D'Addario packs or the D'Addario cases and others allow you to control the humidity more accurately. And I know people who keep all their reed cases. They have reed cases that sort of breathe naturally, but then they keep those inside of a box with sort of a humidifier pack in there that will take away and add humidity as needed. So.
Oh yeah, I've frequently told students that if you have like a terrible reed case that doesn't have like seal from the environment, then just throw your reed case in a Ziploc freezer bag, and just even if you don't humidify it, just giving it that one environment where they're not changing.
I think there's again we're all talking. No one knows the objectively right answer here, but I think that there is some benefit to having a little bit of breathability. I don't know that the completely airtight seems like it might get stale in some way to me.
Oh yeah, but the D'Addario, that's what the D'Addario ones do. They have this rubber gasket around them.
Yeah, I guess so. It just seems like there might be I think there's like little breathing holes or something on those, and you can adjust that, of course. I mean, if you want to have, but then the Lomax case, though, again, I think that's completely airtight. So yeah, I think this was really interesting. I thank everyone so much for contributing to the Clarinet community there. and posting your thoughts and comments. We're going to be doing the debates every Wednesday, and I hope that Andrew will join me once a month to sort of flesh out the ideas that are brought up and talk through them. If you have any questions or comments or feedback or anything, please don't hesitate to comment on the show notes at clarineat.com, or you can contact me directly at feedback@clarineat.com. Thanks so much for coming on to debate with me, Andrew.
Oh, it was a great time. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Clarineat Podcast. For free content updates, coupons, and a chance to win giveaways mentioned on the show, please be sure to enter your email address at clarineat.com/subscribe. The podcast is brought to you in part by the generous support of its listeners. If you'd like to learn how you can help out, please see clarineat.com/support. Today's episode was brought to you by D'Addario Woodwinds. Sanding, shaping, balancing. For centuries, mastering your instrument meant mastering these crafts too. But now, D'Addario is refining craftsmanship for the 21st century by refining their reeds and mouthpieces with the world's most innovative techniques, so you can spend less time sanding, shaping, and balancing, and more time perfecting your own craft. To learn more about the new era of craftsmanship from D'Addario Woodwinds, visit d'addario.com/woodwinds.